Chuck, he says over the phone, I've done 2 movies in Hong Kong. Right now, I want to make a movie with a combat sequence that people will never forget. For decades, people were curious about Bruce Lee's death. Chuck Norris has finally spoken up at the age of 85. The official story doesn't seem credible to him. He believes that night in Hong Kong was considerably more sinister. Chuck was present when Bruce was dying. He'll be shocked by what he found out about that deadly combination of medications. Bruce wasn't simply bad luck. He was given anything that interacted with his current medication. You will be surprised by the revelation of the facts regarding July 20, 1973. On March 10, 1940, Chuck Norris was born in Ryan, Oklahoma, a small community of only 1,000 residents. His family didn't have much money, experiencing one of the most difficult periods in American history. Carlos Berry, his father's preacher, gave him the name Carlos Ray Norris at birth. His parents wished for favors with this name. Chuck's ancestry was a blend of Irish from his grandfather and Cherokee from his grandmother. With less than $500 annually, the Norris family found it difficult to make ends meet. Chuck was born at home with only a midwife present because there was no hospital in the community. He learned what it means to fight against the odds from these difficult beginnings. For Chuck, growing up wasn't easy. His mixed ancestry led to his being teased. Children tried to degrade him by making fun of him and calling him derogatory names. Because of his Cherokee and Irish heritage, he stood out in a way that encouraged violence. To make matters worse, he became quiet, bashful, and stuttering. Bullies would disgrace him in front of others, push him around, and take his lunch money. Chrissy was barely 95 pounds as a freshman. He was a prime target. He occasionally hid in the restroom at lunch in order to stay out of trouble. He felt useless as a result of these traumatic events, and he even considered suicide. However, he secretly made a commitment to himself that he would grow stronger and never again feel helpless. Ray Norris, Chuck's father, drove a truck and was an alcoholic. The family fell apart because of his drinking. When Ray returned from his weeks-long absence, he was frequently inebriated and aloof. In order to live, the family had to relocate frequently and stay with relatives. Wilma, Chuck's mother, was left to struggle to provide for the children when Ray squandered their money on drinking. He never attended birthday celebrations or school functions. Chuck was 12 at the time of one of the worst incidents. He was promised a fishing trip by his father. Ray never showed up, even though Chuck waited outside the truck for hours. In a bar, he had fainted. These setbacks caused severe wounds. Chuck felt unwelcome as a child since he couldn't trust his father. Strangely enough, though, Ray's absence also shielded him from violence because his limited encounters with the family were frequently characterized by rage. Chuck's parents separated when he was 16 years old. The year was 1956. Ray's drinking eventually got to Wilma. The family had to make a fresh start. Prairie Village, Kansas, was where they initially relocated. They shared a little flat above a supermarket. Chuck slept on a couch that folded out. They relocated to Torrance, California, in search of a better life after they were unable to pay for it. Chuck helped pay the expenses by working at a petrol station for $0.75 per hour. He took care of his younger brothers, Aaron and Wellen, and became the head of the household. Chuck went to 4 different high schools since they moved so frequently. He was never given the opportunity to settle down or form enduring friendships. This only strengthened his resolve to create a better life. Chuck's brother Wellen had one of the most eerie experiences in his life. Whelan informed Chuck that he wouldn't live to see 27 before leaving for Vietnam in 1968. Chuck attempted to reassure him, but Wellen was certain. Whelan died in combat on June 3, 1970, shortly before his 27th birthday. Chuck received the news on his 30th birthday. He was broken by the loss. For years, he carried the burden of that tragedy and felt bad about living. His reverence for the spiritual beliefs of his Cherokee heritage also grew as a result. Chuck joined the U.S. in 1958, Air Force at the age of 18. He began his career at Texas's Lackland Air Force Base. There wasn't anything particularly noteworthy about him at first. He was insecure and bashful. he joined the Air Police Force, protecting bases and enforcing regulations. He learned discipline from this role. Korea was where his true metamorphosis started. Ware Austin Air Base was his assigned location. He enrolled in a martial arts class because he was lonely and bored. Mr. J. Chul Shin was his instructor. Chuck had Tang Soo Do training. He obtained his black belt in just 18 months, although it typically takes years. Even during the bitterly cold winters, he exercised for 6 to 8 hours every day. He never imagined that martial arts could give him the strength and confidence he did. Chuck was assigned to March Air Force Base in California upon his return to the United States in 1960. He taught martial arts and protected nuclear weapons there. He offered classes for just $10 a month. While still in uniform, he even took home a major karate title in 1964. In 1962, as an Airman First Class, he retired from the Air Force. He made an attempt to join the police force that same year. The waiting list was excessively lengthy, though. He so used his meager $800 in funds to create a small martial arts studio. He was still terribly bashful, and he had no commercial experience. However, celebrities like James Coburn and Steve McQueen soon came to learn from him. Things started to alter in his life. Chuck held on to one secret for years. He had an affair with Johanna while he was stationed in California. Diane, his high school sweetheart, was his wife at the time. In 1963, a daughter named Dinah was born as a result of the romance. For more than 26 years, Chuck concealed this. He felt a great deal of guilt. In an effort to advance his profession and provide for his official family, he secretly gave money to Dinah. This little-known aspect of his life demonstrated that even heroes have difficulties. Winning wasn't the first step on Chuck Norris' journey to martial arts greatness. It started with a loss. He was humbled in ways that would have broken most men when he initially entered the world of competitive karate. He was soundly defeated by Tony Tulliner's Alan Steen and Joe Louis. He lost, but that wasn't all. These were humiliating losses that revealed every flaw in his strategy. He was defeated 3 times at the International Karate Championships, especially by Tony Tulliner's. Additionally, Tulliner's humiliated him once more by defeating him in the finals of the 1966 California State Karate Championships. Norris had already obtained his black belt in Tang Soo Do while serving in the United States, so this was startling. South Korean Air Force. But when faced with American boxers who had mastered new techniques, his conventional training was insufficient. Rather than giving up, Norris continued to study. He viewed videos of his defeats. He dissected every error. Little by little, he examined his opponent's moves. His style was reconstructed. His early setbacks became the foundation for his subsequent success because of his perseverance. At the All-American Karate Championship in Madison Square Garden in 1967, Norris stunned the martial arts community. This was no ordinary competition. Grandmaster S. Henry Cho served as its host, and thousands of fans and hundreds of warriors attended. It wasn't thought that Norris was the favorite. The unstoppable force was Joe Louis. But everyone was taken aback by Norris in the last encounter. He put his newfound knowledge to work. He had the ideal timing. Lewis's assaults were halted before they could land by his counters. In the closing seconds, Norris ducked under a lunge, turned inside, and punched Louis before delivering a crisp hook kick. It was more than just a win when his name was called out as the winner. It demonstrated that time, talent, and strategy could outweigh brute force. Norris continued after that. He went on to amass a record of only 5 losses and 65 victories. Joe Louis, Skipper Mullins, Arnold Urquhardt, Ronald L. Marchini, Victor Moore, Louis Delgado, and Steve Sanders were among the top boxers of his day whom he defeated. Legends like Alan Steen, Joe Louis, and Louis Delgado were among the 5 fighters that defeated him. During the heyday of American karate, when the sport was thriving and full with future greats, he achieved success. Norris's fashion continued to change. His Tang Soo Do was merged, utilizing American point fighting methods. Because of this, it was almost hard to defeat him. From the World Middleweight Karate Championship to the National Karate Championships, he was taking home big titles by 1966. On November 24, 1968, he had one of his best moments. He then engaged in a bout for the World Professional Middleweight Karate Championship against Luis Delgado. Delgado had dealt Norris what would be his 11th and last defeat earlier that year. It was a personal rematch. Norris became victorious and was crowned champion. He was the unbeaten professional full-contact middleweight champion for 6 years, successfully defending the title until his retirement in 1974. He won Karate's Triple Crown in 1969 for winning the most tournaments that year, and received Black Belt Magazine's Fighter of the Year award. Norris established a martial arts empire as his fighting career flourished. The top personalities in Hollywood attended his schools. He received training from Steve McQueen, who even urged him to pursue acting. He taught Bob Barker how to defend himself. Priscilla Presley sought protection training from Norris. Donnie and Marie, as well as the rest of the Osmond family, became his pupils. Stars began to train and socialize in his dojos. His life transformed as a result of the chances that followed. Bruce Lee's encounter with him at Madison Square Garden in 1968 was one of the most significant. Lee recently performed a display of kung fu. Lee asked the new karate champion Norris to demonstrate his talents on stage after becoming impressed. A friendship that would go on to become famous was born out of this encounter. For years, they trained together diligently, challenging one another to the maximum. Lee learned the strength of high kicks from Norris. After working with Norris, Lee, who had previously thought that kicks should remain low, had a change of heart. Lee's high kicks have improved in just 6 months. One of the most famous battles in movie history resulted from their connection. They filmed their confrontation for The Way of the Dragon at Rome's Colosseum in 1972. Since it was against the law to film there, they had to pay officials and smuggle cameras inside. The scene took up a significant portion of the narrative and took 45 hours to choreograph by Lee, and in the movie, Norris consented to lose the battle because he knew it would make for a memorable scene. And it did. That sequence served as a springboard for Norris' film career. Thanks to Bruce Lee, he landed his first acting part in The Wrecking Crew in 1968. Norris had one line and portrayed a bodyguard. He muttered it because he was so anxious. He even had a black eye from a karate battle the day prior, which he captured on camera. However, this minor role created opportunities. In 1978, he made a significant breakthrough with Good Guys Wear Black. The film was not desired by any studio. In order to display it themselves, Norris and his group rented theaters. Despite only costing $1 million to produce, it brought well over $18 million. Because of his accomplishment, Norris became the first American martial arts star to gain recognition in Hollywood and a true action hero. Chuck Norris made a daring choice that led to his ascent to fame in the 1980s. He got a multi-film contract with Cannon Films in 1984. His career would be irrevocably altered by this. Missing in Action was his debut movie under the contract. It was dedicated by Norris to Welland, his younger brother. Welland served in the 101st Airborne Division as a private. In June 1970, while protecting Firebase Ripcord in Vietnam, he was murdered. For Norris, this made the movie very personal. The audiences adored it. They were looking for heroes who had a cause. The movie was a great hit. It resulted in a 7-year exclusive deal worth more than $20 million and a sequel. One of the highest-paid action stars of the decade was Norris. Cannon Movies relied on him by the middle of the 1980s. His films, such as Firewalker, The Delta Force, and Invasion USA, sustained the studio. His movies were a global success, both domestically and abroad. Missing in Action 2 was one of the most startling episodes of his career. The Philippines is where the movie was filmed. Norris had to perform a scenario of torture. He had a bag over his head and his character was tied upside down. A fake rat was intended to be inside the bag, but the prop never showed up. At his own words, Norris was at his immature and youthful stage. The crew was instructed to employ a genuine rat by him. They hung Norris upside down, killed the rat, and placed it in a sack. He dripped fake blood into his lips. He clenched his jaw over the dead rat. He went on to say, "I think I'm going to get the bubonic plague because all I can taste is mountain rat." A portion of the rat's head was eaten off as they removed the bag. This tremendous effort demonstrated Norris's determination to be honest at all costs. Over time, Norris' box office success grew. A Force of One made $20 million in 1979. With over $19 million, The Octagon came next in 1980. On a budget of $4.5 million, Silent Rage made nearly $10 million in 1982. In 1983, Lone Wolf McQuad followed. It became a fan favorite and earned $12 million. It combined a Western vibe with action. Walker, Texas Ranger was later influenced by this. With every movie, Norris gained popularity. Studios had faith in him. His admirers adored him. He rose to prominence as one of the decade's most bankable celebrities. Of Silence became his biggest success to date in 1985. In the U.S., it made over $20 million and debuted at the top of the charts. It was appreciated by critics. According to one assessment, it might be his breakthrough movie, and he showed quiet ability. The film demonstrated that Norris was capable of more than just B-movie action. It was compared to good Clint Eastwood or Charles Bronson movies. His subsequent films, however, fell short of that caliber. During the Cold War, Norris's reputation as an anti-communist hero gained strength. His movies came to represent the might of the United States. The Delta Force and Missing in Action were more than just amusement. They motivated actual individuals. Via underground markets, pirated copies proliferated in Romania. People observed Norris's struggle against injustice. Chuck Norris versus Communism, a 2015 documentary, demonstrated how his movies fueled Romanians' aspirations for independence. Someone once remarked, "You think you can do the same when you see Chuck Norris defy authority without fear?" Walker, a Texas Ranger, followed. This was no ordinary show. It turned into a sensation. On April 21, 1993, it began. 19.2 million people watched the initial episodes. It worked, even if CBS wasn't sure it would. Up till May 19, 2001, the program aired for 8 seasons and 203 episodes. It had about 15 million viewers at its height. It was broadcast in more than 100 nations. After being shifted to an earlier time slot, it still attracted 10.2 million viewers in its last season. The star was not all that Norris was. He served as executive producer as well. He influenced the course of the show. From season 2, it was operated by his firm, Top Kick Productions. He even persuaded CBS to broadcast an episode about faith. Despite their reluctance, Norris wagered that it would be their most popular episode. Yes, it was. The season's highest-rated episode was the one about a girl who was shot in a gang shooting. Norris ensured that the series remained morally upright. No drugs. Community service was performed by the characters. His personal views were reflected in this. Norris had a special deal, too. He received 23% of the total income. This covered streaming syndication, DVDs, and reruns. Just from syndication, the show earned about $692 million by 2018. Sony and CBS were sued by Norris. They were concealing profits, he claimed. He sought damages of about $30 million. The case went on for more than 5 years. In 2023, it was ultimately resolved. The specifics were kept under wraps. However, the fight demonstrated the show's continued value. Norris made an unexpected decision in 2001. He himself put an end to the show. Even though the ratings were still high, he wanted to step down as the winner. Being a producer and celebrity, he claimed, left no time for a personal life. It reminded him of boxing. He didn't want his prolonged presence to be remembered. The last episode was broadcast as a 2-hour film. It was nearly too wonderful for television, according to Norris. He abruptly terminated Walker, Texas Ranger, according to his own will. In December 1958, Chuck Norris wed Diane Halchak. At the time, they were only teenagers. Heartbreak marked the end of their 30-year marriage. Their romance ended in 1988 while Chuck was filming The Colombian Connection, Delta Force 2. In 1989, the divorce was finalized. It was a difficult period. He was portraying rugged, devoted heroes on cinema. Off-screen, however, his affairs were causing his own family life to collapse. Through it all, Diane had been by his side. From his time in the Air Force to his ascent in martial arts. But she had had enough of the infidelity. Mike, born in 1962, and Eric, born in 1964, were their two sons. Custody details were kept confidential. However, one thing was evident. A significant turning point in Chuck's life was this divorce. Despite his personal issues, he continued to fight in the courtroom. In 2018, Chuck filed a huge lawsuit on January 30, demanded more than $30 million from Sony and CBS. Topkick Productions, his company, said they broke a contract with Walker, Texas Ranger. According to his contract, he was entitled to 23% of all show-related income. The series had earned over $692 million by 2019. Chuck's portion might have been worth hundreds of millions of dollars as a result. However, he claimed CBS withheld funds from him. According to the lawsuit, they haven't compensated him for streaming income since 2004. For years, the legal battle continued. A judge moved the matter to arbitration in September 2018 due of the tight ties between Sony and CBS allegations. The charges were startling. According to Chuck's staff, Sony and CBS came up with ingenious techniques to conceal their revenues. They claimed that Walker was transferred from DVDs and syndicated by the corporations, which would have required Chuck to pay them for their streaming services. In this manner, they maintained financial management without disclosing. According to reports, the businesses even prevented Chuck from accessing the financial documents. It appeared to be an attempt to hide from him the true amount of Walker's income. One assertion caught my attention. To retain the money in-house, CBS allegedly turned down good licensing bids. A partnership with Katz Broadcasting that had the potential to generate actual money was mentioned in one instance. Rather, CBS granted its own Get TV network the rights. In other words, Chuck was left out while CBS kept all the earnings. This action demonstrated how large media corporations could avoid paying talent by using their own networks and businesses. The conflict came to a conclusion after over 5 years. A judge dismissed the case on July 24, 2023. Chuck and CBS have come to a covert agreement. Although the precise figure is unknown, insiders believe CBS spent a significant sum to resolve the matter. In 2022, Sony had already been removed from the case. CBS underwent significant transformations throughout this time, evolving into Paramount Global. Jared Padalecki's Walker remake debuted in the meantime. Chuck's consent was important because he still shared ownership of the original. The settlement probably put a stop to any more lawsuits pertaining to this battle. However, that wasn't Chuck's first run-in in court. He brought a lawsuit against Karate Studios using his name in 1996 for racial discrimination. It followed a 1992 case in which those studios were ordered to compensate black families for discriminatory treatment. Chuck said he was unaware of the discriminatory treatment of persons by the studios. He claimed that learning about it hurt his mental health. In addition to requesting $1.05 million, his complaint charged the studio owners with various violations of their licensing agreement. The amount of studios they had pledged to open had not materialized. A private settlement brought that matter to a quiet end in 1997. Chuck claimed that he fought the case out of ethics rather than ego. It all began in 2013 when Gina Norris underwent 3 MRI scans over the course of 8 to 10 days. She was looking for solutions to her rheumatoid arthritis problems. Physicians employed Bracco Diagnostics ProHANS and Multihans gadolinium-based contrast agents for the scans. However, nobody could have predicted what would happen next. Gina experienced a severe burning sensation inside her body shortly after the last exam. She claimed that it felt as though her veins were filled with acid. The pain first remained in specific places before continuing to expand. Chuck had to repeatedly take her to Texas emergency rooms, often in the middle of the night, because things grew so severe. Things only got worse over the course of the following 5 months. Gina lost the strength to even swallow. Her baby formula had to be fed through her esophagus by the doctors. The fire continued to burn. She stayed in emergency rooms for 5 or 6 nights. She trembled. She experienced intense fatigue, tingling, and numbness. Her thoughts clouded. She had kidney damage. She had trouble breathing. Chuck and Gina thought that the gadolinium's persistence in her body was the cause of everything. They dubbed it gadolinium deposition disease, a disorder that is still controversial among scientists. The couple made the decision to fight back by November 2017. In their complaint, they sought damages exceeding $10 million. They filed lawsuits against well-known firms, including Assist Medical Systems, Inc., Bracco Spa, and McKesson Corporation, alleging that they were aware that gadolinium may remain in the body and cause damage, but never issued appropriate cautions. Other patients who claimed to have also suffered from the metal left behind by these scans used their case as a symbol. Chuck frequently voiced his concerns about the dangers of gadolinium. Chuck's celebrity and his will to defend his wife attracted a lot of media attention to the subject. People were most moved by Chuck's decision to put Gina's needs ahead of his own. He said, "I gave up my film career to focus on Gina when he left the industry. I think this issue is that important." He stayed beside her through it all. He slept on a couch next to her hospital bed. He even read 17 books to her as she lay sick. The couple spent around $2 million on alternative treatments, hoping to find something that would help. Gina later shared how Chuck never left her side during those long, painful months. At age 80, had given up his old life to become her full-time caregiver. He said in 2017, "My whole life has been focused on making it the best it can be. That's why I ended my career." But after years of legal battles, everything took an unexpected turn. On January 15, 2020, Chuck and Gina dropped their lawsuit. They didn't get any settlement. Both sides agreed to pay their own legal costs. They could never file the case again. The company they sued, Bracco, called it a victory and said they stood by the safety of their products. After all their public promises to fight, many were surprised by the sudden end to the case. It was seen as a big win for the companies that make gadolinium agents. Even while dealing with all this, Chuck turned his internet fame into a business success. Companies knew people loved the jokes about him, so they hired him for ads. He appeared in a World of Warcraft commercial. Fiat made him the face of their ad campaign in Europe. He launched his own supplements under the name Roundhouse Provisions at age 83. Toyota made a funny ad where a Tacoma got Chuck's powers. A Norwegian company even ran a climate change ad saying they'd take over from Chuck in saving the world. Chuck's meme fame helped him reach both young fans and older ones who knew him from his movies. Chuck also found success as a writer. His 2006 autobiography, Against All Odds, My Story, became a New York Times bestseller. He shared his struggles with poverty, his father's drinking, and his own early weaknesses. His 2008 book, Black Belt Patriotism, also hit the bestseller list, calling for America to return to Christian values and stronger borders. He wrote fiction, like the Justice Writers series, and books on philosophy, like The Secret Power Within and The Secret of Inner Strength. In 2009, he even published the official Chuck Norris fact book, inspired by the internet jokes about him. On top of all this, Chuck became a strong voice in politics. He backed Mike Huckabee in 2008, helping him win the Iowa caucuses with 34% of the vote. He wrote for conservative websites, speaking out on topics like creationism in schools and his opposition to gay marriage. In 2012, he and Gina made a YouTube video urging Christians to vote, saying America was at a tipping point. He even joked about leading Texas if it ever seceded. His influence went beyond endorsements. He gave money to Republican candidates and kept writing about his views in columns read by thousands. Chuck Norris has always spoken with deep respect about Bruce Lee. Even when people tried to create drama between them, Norris stayed focused on the truth. In 2018, he shared his personal thoughts on Bruce's mysterious death. Norris believed it wasn't just bad luck or a simple health issue. He said it came down to a dangerous mix of medicines. When Bruce was in Hong Kong working on a new film, he had a terrible headache. Actress Betty Ting Pei, who was with him at the time, gave him some medicine to help, but Norris believed that this medicine reacted badly with what Bruce had already been taking for his back injury. Bruce had struggled with back pain since 1968, and Norris thought this drug mix caused Bruce's brain to swell. In his words, the medication he had taken for his back, they reacted to each other and made his brain swell up and created an aneurysm or ruptured blood cells in his brain. This idea fits with the official cause of death, cerebral edema, but adds another possible reason behind it. Still, some scientists have a different idea. In 2022, experts wrote in the Clinical Kidney Journal that Bruce may have died from drinking too much water. They called it hyponatremia or water intoxication. They said his kidneys couldn't get rid of the extra water fast enough. The theory points to his high fluid intake and his use of cannabis, which can make people feel thirstier. The autopsy showed his brain weighed 1,575 grams, much more than the normal 1,400 grams. The official report said he died from a reaction to Equagesic, a painkiller that has aspirin and meprobamate. But experts still argue over what really happened that day. At 85, Norris still works hard to clear up the false stories people tell about Bruce. He often talks about how people wrongly thought they were rivals. The truth, Norris says, is that they respected each other deeply. Bruce could be serious on screen, but Norris said he also had a fun, playful side in private. And what about the endless question, who would have won in a real fight? Norris usually avoids giving a direct answer because, to him, it misses the point. He wanted people to see the friendship they shared, not imagine them as enemies. Still, in a private talk with their co-star John Ben, Norris reportedly said Bruce would have won, saying, "Bruce, of course, nobody could beat him." Norris has never said that in public interviews.